Secretary of the branch, CA Prashant Kumar. Learned speaker of today's session, CA K.S.S.Sarma garu. Senior members of the profession, respected past chairman, members of the managing committee, my dear professional colleagues, a very good evening to you all and welcome you all to this 5th day of direct taxes, SHASHTOTSAV, a week-long webinars on direct taxes. And today's webinar on the topic, Faceless Assessments, a new era in tax administration. We, the members of Visakhapatnam branch, convey our heartful thanks to the speaker, CA K.S.S.Sarma garu, for accepting our request to address the members of our Visakhapatnam branch. The central government introduced Faceless Assessment Scheme to provide greater efficiency, transparency, and accountability in the income tax assessments. The provisions under this scheme were introduced to eliminate the interface between the assessing officer and the assessee during the proceedings to an extent that it is technologically feasible. One of the surveys said that over 70% of the respondents felt that the scheme has resulted in saving their time as compared to the earlier physical assessments. Particularly in these pandemic times, this facility has been very useful. It said, adding to the positive feedback of the respondents reflects that taxpayers' growing confidence in the new scheme. Under the faceless assessment system, a taxpayer is not required to visit an IT department office or meet a department official for income tax related business. This scheme aims to optimize the utilization of resources through economies of scale and functional specialization and introduce a team-based determination of arm's length price with dynamic jurisdiction. The process includes service of notice by the National E-Assessment Center, regional E-Assessment centers, issuance of notice to SSC to get information, documents, or evidence, automated allocation system. If failure from the SSC to comply with the notice to produce the documents, evidence, etc., the process, examination, the draft assessment order by the National E-Assessment Center, filing of objections with dispute resolution panel. Finally, the National E-Assessment Center shall transfer all electronic records of the case to the assessing officer of the completion of the assessment. Faceless assessment, the first amendment scheme 2021, came to bring the provisions of Faceless Assessment Scheme 2019 on par with the provisions of Section 144B of Income Tax Act. To discuss and explain about the entire process and the details of the scheme of Faceless Assessments, we have eminent speaker CA K.S.S.Sarma garu with us today. Let us gain thorough knowledge with his deliberations on this topic. Now I request CA Avinash Gudivada to introduce the speaker of today's webinar.
Good evening, members. K.S.S.Sarma garu is a chartered accountant, being in practice for past 34 years. He is fellow member of the institute and he is senior partner in the firm Messrs. Sharma and Rao Chartered Accountants, established in 1992. He likes traveling and attended more than 150 seminars throughout India on all taxation matters. He is law graduate and done masters in commerce and masters in business administration and having higher diploma in software engineering. He is interested in Telugu literature and traditional music. With this, I thank Chairman Sir and handing over the proceedings to Chairman Sir.
Thank you, CA Avinash. Now I request the speaker Sharma garu to take up the proceedings.
Good evening, friends. First of all, I thank the chairman of the Visakhapatnam branch, Sri Murali Krishna, to give this opportunity to me. And I also thank Sri M.V. Sarma, past chairman, who could catch me after 4 or 5 days. He's hunting me, and anyhow, he could get my phone number and crashed me into this faceless assessment and showed and said that I have my face value has gone. So that's why I put this figure here, this photo where my face is not there. Coming back to this, but the topic is very peculiar: faceless assessment, the new era in tax administration. Now, my first quote is Dr. Radhakrishnan's quotation that change is the law of life. And in the Future Shock, the first book, The first quotation is, the change is the unchanging thing in this changing world. So we have to change with life. When I am a student of CPE in 80s, the tallying of trial balance itself is a great venture. And we go to bank audits also. Then we have to, our seniors used to ask us certain guidelines, how to see the, how to reconcile and how say the subsidiary ledger should be seen like that. Now, before going into faceless assessment, first of all, I will go back to the old era of income tax from 1961. In this connection, I venture to say that I am having practical knowledge of both sides of the department for the past more than 40 years. In my childhood, when my father used to ask me to write the queries and replies that was given by the income tax officer, and we used to write, the queries which are more than 20, 30 like that. Every time there will be so many adjournments. The books are manual, and the hearings will be around more than 10 to 15 hearings will be there for every SSC. Way back to 1960s to 80s, almost all the cases are business cases are under section 143(3) itself. Later on, during 80s too, there is a small change, and most of the cases were being done under section 143(1) for a long time. Still, there are cases which are to be done under 143(2). This is the way but the thing is, the assessing officers in those times are rather more having brilliancy than the present generation, because they did not use any technology. For example, I was really stunned by one assessing officer who asked us, if it is a loan, what is the proof that it is a loan? Everybody we say in tax audit 269 SS and 269T, but simply giving a account pay check does not matter that it is a loan or a deposit. There should be some other evidence that it should be a loan. The loan is evidenced by a promissory note. When we bring the promissory note, when he asks us to bring the promissory note, the SC brings the promissory note to the income tax officer, and on seeing the signature and stamp of on the end of the page, the assessing officer used to say this is a bogus loan account, because the stamp of ₹1 note affixed to it is of new version, whereas the pronote is of old in the older dates. In that way, they use it to have abundant skills to catch hold of the defects in the books of accounts. Now we have technology has gone. Even our CA, we are growing. Our ranks, we are used to manual accounting system, now computerized, and now everything is almost artificial intelligence. Now the assessment is, in the old era, the assessment is offline. Notice will be given by the AO asking certain details, and fixes the date of hearing that everybody knows. On the date of hearing, the SSC may seek adjournment or appear before the AO either by himself or through an organized representative. The AO asks certain additional information which may be submitted later as may be fixed in the order sheet. After various hearings and verifications, the AO finalizes the assessment order and will be noted down in the order sheet. If the SSC is aggrieved to the additions, he can go for an appeal. This is the simple concept in the now objectives of faceless assessment. To eliminate the interface between the AO and the SSC during the course of proceedings to the extent that is feasible. This is most important, because anyhow, there are so many objections from the authorized representatives throughout India, as well as from the SSCs, that they are being harassed. So to avoid all these types of complications, to eliminate the interface between the AO and the SSC is being done in this new government. They have optimized the utilization of resources to the economies of scale and function specialization, introduced a team-based determination of arm's length price.
Sarma sir,
Dynamic-
sorry, I'm holding you. Can you just bring your presentation to the right side? Like, okay, left side, we are missing something.
Right, కొంచెం ఇటు మార్చు. Left side is
That you need to do, sir. That you need to do.
Sir, he has done it right now.
No.
okay. Okay.
That the viewers has to do. That the speaker cannot.
You are sharing your screen. Screen
Okay.
is half. It is
Sir, now it is very clear now as it is.
Yes, sir. It
No,
is very much clear,
left
sir.
side, it is gone.
Clear గా ఉంది.
It is very much clear, sir.
No, the entire screen is not visible. I'm sorry, sir.
Sir, your adjustments you need to do, sir.
What kind of adjustment I will do, sir? You are displaying the screen. I
sir.
cannot do anything on the screen.
Okay, sir, but all others are saying it is clear. Let us don't interrupt the proceedings, sir. Please.
Sir, ask them to double click on the window which is showing presentation.
I clicked it, sir. What I'm seeing is only ACELESS assessment and EWEN, the AO and the SSC during the dash. I don't know. It is feasible.
For
Sir,
us, it is
Prakash
clear.
Garu, for all others, it is visible, clear.
I show it on the
In the Union Budget 2000, hello? In the Union Budget 2019, the Finance Minister proposed the introduction of a scheme of faceless e-assessment. The scheme seeks to eliminate the human interface between the taxpayer and the income tax department. The scheme lays down the procedure to carry out a faceless assessment through electronic mode. From 13th August 2020, the e-assessment scheme of 2019 stands amended and hence known as faceless assessment scheme. This is the object of the scheme. Here, the faceless assessment scheme is applicable only to scrutiny assessments. You must be knowing the difference between 143.1 and 143.3. That means 143.3 and 147 and 144. All the three sections will be applicable for a faceless assessment scheme. Faceless assessment will now bring in the provisions of the Income Tax Act and its purview. Now, it applies to my mind that faceless assessment is nothing but an external examiner. Suppose we are in the Visakhapatnam SSCs or in the Andhra University. Suppose this the examination papers will be sent to somebody else, and they will value the papers and send back to the Andhra University professors, and they will declare the result. Similar is the case here. The questions will be asked by some other person of other territorial jurisdiction, and the SSC will give his reply. Then the order will be passed and it will be sent back to the jurisdictional AO. If any demand or other things are there, it will be taken care of by the assessing officer. This is how I contemplate the faceless assessment. Now, the faceless assessment comprises of this type of National Faceless Assessment Center or National E-Assessment Center. Now it is called as National Faceless Assessment or Public E-Assessment Center. It is having certain regional faceless assessment centers. Our Vizag is one of the regional E-Assessment Center where they are also getting some assessments from various parts of India other than the Andhra Pradesh jurisdiction. These centers are having 4 types of units. That is one assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit, and review unit. These are the 4 types of units. Now, the assessment unit, what does the assessment unit it does? When identify the points or issues. Suppose they give limited points in sometimes. When faceless assessment is introduced in the very beginning, there is a virtual meeting held by the Income Tax Department of Visakhapatnam. There I have responded there that faceless assessment in by mistake, when once 143.2 order notice it itself is given, they have given one point that limited scrutiny and the point for the selection is so and so. And I have responded in 143 itself immediately. Later on, they have issued notice under section 142.1 and asking so many points. Then I was really disturbed. I said, when you are saying one point and I have answered it, why should you again ask for so many points, which is not there in the issue of that faceless assessment 143 to notice? That you have recorded there at the Vizag Commissioner of Income Tax, who is in the REC center, he has recorded those points. And they said we will go through and we will inform to the Delhi center. That is way back when it is just introduction level. I have pointed out this scheme. Now here this identification is points is, suppose there are some TDS points mismatch. TDS was not deducted, or that there is 40A3 editions are there, or section 2. There are some points in 269 SS and 269T like that. Basing on that, they will identify the points and issue the notice, seeking information and clarification. Then analysis of the material. After giving our reply, they will analyze the material. Then they will make a draft assessment order. This draft assessment order used to be there way back, long back, in certain cases where the additional user commissioner used to monitor the cases. There is a section called 144A. In case the SSC is aggrieved, he can ask the assistant additional commissioner to interfere on that matter. Then the assessing, he will give a direction to the assessing officer. Basing on the direction of the assessing officer, that the assessment will be done under section 143.3, read with section 144A. I doesn't know what happens if 144 objection is made by the SSC while assessment proceedings in Faceless are going on, because that point was not there in the Faceless assessment scheme. Next, we'll come to verification unit. Here in the verification unit, there will be inquiry and cross verification, examination of books of accounts, recording of statements, and examination of witnesses. Inquiry and cross verification means here a case of my SSC's son was verified under section 143.3. There they found that the entire stock of the SSC was brought from his father. Then they gave a notice and asked us to give various points and what are the evidence you have to substantiate that you have sold this stock to your son on this last day of RU and income tax SC. All these details were asked, called for, and we have given all the details. Basing on that, they have completed the assessment. That is, they have cross verification was done. Then examination of books of accounts. Examination of accounts, generally they will ask for PDF of cash book, ledger, or other ledgers also, if at all any required. Sometimes they may ask for confirmation of accounts also. Next, recording of statements. Recording of statement means statement has to be recorded. I don't know how that verification unit may come back. When you go for a verification department or recording of statement, it should be manual. That means some person from somewhere he will record, but he may not be the assessing officer. They will change over, and even this statement which they have recorded, they will send back to the unit, and the unit will pass the orders. Then examination of witnesses. Here also, if anything, the any witnesses are there, there also the examination will be conducted by another assessing officer who comes manually, and he gives his report, and that report will be sent to the REC unit, and REC unit again basing on that will frame the assessment. He may ask the local officer also to do the verification or examination, but local officer may not be having any jurisdiction, but he will simply record the reasons and everything, will forward this matter to the regional center where the assessment is going to be held. Next, after verification, there is technical unit. This is technical unit is required on advice on legal, accounting, forensic, information technology, transfer paging, validation, management, or technical matters. Here, the special audit comes into act. In case of accounting, they may ask for the chartered accountants do a special audit in case of there any complication of accounts. Or sometimes they may ask for forensic, because to know the signature of certain persons, whether it is fraudulent or not, they may ask the forensic department to verify whether it is correct. Sometimes in technical matters which are they are dealing it, if it is a highly complicated information technology thing, they will ask for certain persons who are having abundant knowledge on information technology. In case of transfer paging also, they may seek the help of the specialists. You also know that valuation is also most important in case of buildings value. So they may take the valuation cell into consideration, and the valuation will be done by that valuation cell, and they will give a report to the unit. These are all technical things which the department will take the help from the specialists. Next point. Next, review unit. After checking all these things, whether relevant material evidence is on record, relevant points of facts, law and case laws are duly incorporated. Because after verification, we give some case laws, and they give also, they have got their own case laws in favor of the department, and basing on those things, they will have a review unit and they will review it. After reviewing, a notice under 140, the general procedure is a notice under 143(2) will be served on the National E-Assessment Center first. Generally, we get a notice only from National E-Assessment Center, Delhi. The taxpayer has not, whether he has filed his return of income in response to notice under 142(1) or 148, and the AO has issued the notice under 142(3)(2). Has not filed the return in response to 142(1). Has not filed the return in response to notice under 148 and notice under 142(1) issued by the AO. Here, very recently, in the case of Asian Paints, the Asian Paints assessment was completed by the assessing unit of Bombay. They have got around 3,000 dealers, which the Asian Paints has claimed traveling expenses to foreign travel to their dealers. Now the department is thinking that the benefit given to the dealers is income in the hands of the dealers, and hence they are giving notice under section 148 to all the SSCs, all the dealers, which are around 3,000 in number throughout India. So in that way, they may ask whether it was accounted for as income or not. They may verify basing on the information they are having with them. Next. Or again, sir, note on what SSC may file response. Here generally, unlike others, this is a time-bound program. We can't be lazy. So within that specified time, we have to seek adjournment or give partial information or full information as called for. Otherwise, it is very dangerous, and sometimes the assessing officers are just and not even giving 1 month, 1 day time. The very next day, they are passing the assessment orders. So we must be very, very careful with regarding to the submissions, because submissions should be filed. My humble request is it should be filed 1 day before the time frame. So if you are asking for 15 days, better to file between 10th or 12th of the 12 days within that. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us. Tomorrow, if he passes an order on 16th day, we will have to face a lot of problems, and it is difficult for us even in appeal, because the appeal is also like that. Because as on today, none of the appeals were taken up by the CAT appeals, unlike the assessments. Next. National Cell assigns cases. After receiving the National Assessment Center will spread the cases to various wings, that is regional assessment centers. Suppose the Visakhapatnam Regional Assessment Center is allotted with some cases of Bombay, some cases of Kolkata, Delhi, etc., which are very huge in number, which is both in quantity wise as well as quality wise. There are cases where the taxpayer itself pays 10,000 crores rupees. Such is the amount of volume which our assessing officer in Visakhapatnam are doing in this RAC unit. That assessment unit may take request to National Center for obtaining information, documents, or evidence from SC or any other person. They may ask the SSC or some other class. Suppose in our case, not only the SSC, the SSC's father was also called for to give the information, for which we have submitted the information and the assessment was completed. Next, conducting certain inquiry or verification by the verification unit. Then they will make an inquiry. After giving the submissions, if they are not satisfied, they may go for verification. Then they take sometimes if it is still they are doubtful, they can take the help of technical unit. Obtaining information documents. National Investment to issue notice to SSC or any other person for information or documents to be submitted within time given to the National Electronics Center. The SSC or any other person file response to National E-Assessment Center within the time given in notice. Otherwise, they can ask for adjournment also. Like I want 15 days time like that. So it should be time bound. Next, National E-Assessment Center send information and documents received from SSC, any person, and report received from verification recipient. Suppose the verification unit also files any report, that report will also go to the National E-Assessment Center, and technical unit also gives a report. Basing on these two, they will do the assessment order. Next. If SSC fails to comply with the above notice or 142.1 or direction under 142.2a, then National E-Assessment Center shall serve show cause notice under section 144 as to why assessment should not be made under section 144. Here the problem comes is none of the SSCs opened the site at all, and most of the SSCs doesn't have any email IDs, particularly in Mapsal IHF. Email IDs will be from our side only, and the opening, if they don't open or they go to some foreign countries and come back, meanwhile the assessment will be done under 144. This is the most dangerous provision in this faceless assessment. Then if SSC's response not received or not satisfactory, then as a National E-Assessment Center will intimate the assessment unit to make best judgment under section 144. Then the direction will be given by the center to the RECS to make a best judgment under 144. Conducting certain inquiry or verification by verification unit. National E-Assessment Center present case to verification unit in a regional assessment center through automated allocation system. That means it will be automation. There will not be any human intervention for allotment of allotment to the various centers. Verification unit will be sent reports to National E-Assessment Center. After verification, this unit will give to the National E-Assessment Center. Next slide. Next, technical assistance from technical unit. National E-Assessment Center to assign case to any technical unit in any regional E-Assessment through automated allocation center. Technical unit will send reports to National E-Assessment Center only. Next, assessment. Now we come to assessment. On the basis of materials, assessment unit to make draft assessment order under section 143.3 or 144 or 143/144 or 143.3 read with section 147. That means the one part previously what they said is 147 is outside the purview of faceless assessment. Now they are bringing the 147 assessments also into faceless era. In draft as order, assessment unit may accept the written income or make variation and send copy to National E-Assessment Center. So if there is any variation, they will send it with the variation to the National Center at Delhi. National E-Assessment Center will examine draft order in accordance with the risk management strategy. If they feel that it is high, then they will give another opportunity by way of draft assessment order. Variation might be proposed by the assessment unit in returned income. Variation might not be proposed by the assessment unit in returned income. That depends upon. When variation is proposed by the assessment unit, National E-Assessment Center might provide an opportunity of being heard to the SC if variation is harmful for the SC. Suppose if it is very large demand is coming up, then the assessment center thinks that let us give another opportunity. Or National E-Assessment Center might assign draft order to review unit in any regional E-Assessment Center through automated allocation system for review of the draft order. Then assessment will be completed. This is, I'm just telling about the mechanism of these things. After that, I will come to issues where in one by one issue under the E-Assessment and the faceless assessment. No variation proposed by the assessment unit. If there is no variation, National E-Assessment Center might finalize the draft order and survey a copy of final order to SC along with the demand or refund and notice of intimating penalty. Generally, if there is no demand, most of the cases in Visakhapatnam, almost 90% of the cases, the income returned is being accepted. Whereas in other cases, there is some few troubles which I am going to discuss in my later part. Or national assessment might assign draft order to review unit in any regional assessment center through automated allocation system for review of the draft order. Then assessment will be completed. Next, review unit. What this review unit does? Review unit on draft order. Review unit may agree with the draft order, then intimate national assessment about concurrence. If they are just like the tribunal members both concur with the order, if they do not, it will be referred to a third member in the tribunal. Similarly, in the High Court also, it is a two-member judges in the High Court. If one differs from the other, again it will be referred to third member. Similarly, this review unit may agree with the draft order, then intimate national assessment. Review unit may suggest modifications in draft order to national assessment if there is any suggestions. National assessment center assign case to any other assessment unit through automated allocation system. Again, it will allocate. New assessment unit, after considering the suggestion of review unit, to send final draft order to national assessment. Then variation might be proposed or not. National assessment center opportunities are being heard. Here, opportunity. National may file response to national assessment center in time limit specified in notice or extended time. That is, if you ask for an adjournment, they will give time. SSC may not file response to national assessment center in time limit specified. Then it will be completed under section 144. National assessment shall send response to assessment unit. Assessment unit, after considering response of FC, to send revised draft order to national assessment center. Decide about the variation. They will decide about after taking the objections, they may decide about the variation. Variation might be harmful to SC. Variation might not be harmful. Variation. Okay, next. If variation is harmful to SC, national assessment will provide opportunity being heard to SC. If variation is revised draft order is harmful for SC as compared to draft order or final draft order. If variation is not harmful to the SC or SSC does not file response to national assessment center in the time specified, National Electoral Center will finalize the draft order, revise the draft order, and serve a copy of final order to SC along with the demand or refund and notice of intimating penalty if any. Here, that's why I'm saying that we must be very careful with time limits and also seeking adjournments. They may not give so many adjournments like our assessing officers, which are done manually in the past. SSC is eligible per section 144C. National E-Assessment Center will forward the draft order, final draft order, revised draft order to the SC. SC files objections to the disputed resolution panel, or SC files acceptance to the National E-Assessment Center or not. Filed objections to disputed resolution panel within the time given in 144C. There the dispute next. If SC files objections to the disputed resolution panel, what happens? Dispute resolution panel will give direction to the E-Assessment Center. National E-Assessment Center will forward those directions to assessing unit. Assessing unit will prepare a draft order as per the directions of dispute panel and forward to a national center. A National E-Assessment Center will finalize the draft order and survey a copy of final order to assess along with demand or refund and notice of intimating penalty if any, and assessment will be complete. Here the main problem is particularly from June 1st to till date, the site is not working properly and we are unable to give our submissions within the time, and sometimes the assessments were completed without our knowledge. And this point we have to take up before the finance ministry so that it is even the SSC under good faith and he is even ready to file his objections. Still he is not in a position to file his objections, but meanwhile the assessment is being completed under section 143.3. Next. Now if the SSC files, National Assessment will finalize the order and serve a copy of final order along with the demand or refund. Simpler than the other mark. Next. Faceless assessment. Next issues. Appearance of taxpayers before the authorities. Now, the main intention of faceless assessment here is the assessor need not appear before the tax authorities. Way back in 1970s till date till 2020 or 2019, what I say, we have to sit in the verandas of the income tax department and wait for our turn. Then the income tax officer calls us and asks us, sometimes at the end of March, we have to wait even up to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock because the time is so high. For each and every, we have to even wait up to 12 o'clock or midnight also, because the assessing officer is very busy in completing his assessments within the time frame. However, now that type of harassment or thing is not there, but we have a lot of time with us, and it is our bounded duty to respond within the time, because the time coming to the office, the waiting time, etc. is lost. And in your office, sitting in your office, you have got ample time to verify the case laws on facts as well as on legal grounds. And if at all, if you want, you can take suggestions from your seniors or some other experts, and then again give your reply. In such amount of time is there, still if you do not do, it is the fault of the SSC or the authorized representative, but it is not the fault of the department. However, taxpayer or his other representative can also request for personal hearing or oral submissions, in which case hearing can be conducted exclusively through video conferencing, including video telephony, in accordance with the procedure laid down by the CBDT. Here they have very recently they have given that video conferencing, which is not at all working properly. Sometimes they give a date for the video conferencing, and on the date we have to come and give our replies. That is, even personal hearing is also through video conferencing, just like the tribunal in which is online. Only 1 or 2 days the tribunal is offline, and other days the tribunal of the Visakhapatnam bench is offline. Then allow just a minute. Next. Submission. చేస్తున్నారా? ఏం చేస్తున్నారు? Next, submission guidelines. Next, issues will come. Submission guidelines. First of all, I'll now come to submission guidelines, how to give replies in a faceless assessment era. Whenever a notice is given, it should be, the reply should be clear and complete in all respects. That is first point. Second thing is, the reply should be meaningful and self-explanatory. Then it should be communicative, and the detailed submission should be given. Must not be on the basis of assumptions. There should not be any assumption on this point. That enclosed with the facts, case laws, and references wherever necessary. The submissions should always refer to Supreme Court or High Court and tribunal judgments on the issues related to e-assessment notice. Suppose whenever a notice is issued under 143(2) as well as 142(1), and certain points were raised by the assessing officer, my humble submission is just go through the tribunal judgments of Visakhapatnam bench and AP High Court first, instead of going to other case laws. Then if there are any such decisions of the tribunal or the High Court, kindly note down, and the gist of it may be noted down, and in the reply you just enclose it and say that it is your jurisdictional tribunal or your jurisdictional High Court. So it has to be followed by the assessing unit, whether it is Delhi, Ahmedabad, or whatever it may be. Still, the SSC's jurisdiction doesn't change. Even though assessment procedure might change, but the jurisdiction will never change. Still now, tomorrow if they change the jurisdiction, it is not for a limited purpose. That is only for the purpose of assessment under section 143(3). Only the jurisdiction has changed, but not for other purposes. For all practical purposes, your assessment will be under your assessing officer as before. So your case laws of your tribunal or your High Court will still prevail. Suppose you are dealing with a necessity of a different place, then you have to refer the case laws of the tribunal or that high court and submit to the concerned unit. Here, you should also give your submissions or issues already decided in your favor. This I will come to you in some of the issues where I have done like this. No opportunity should be left in the submission to the future, if any. Generally, it should not be submitted. In the submission should be very clear along with the supporting case laws. SE can always plead that the SE is not fault in furnishing complete details. Correct and complete submissions in all respects made it first assessment become a strong base in the appeal in future. Why I am asking you to give your case laws, because if it goes to the first appellate authority, that is the CAT appeals, which is also a faceless appeal, now your case becomes strong. Whenever submission is made on any issue, it should include the provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961. It should always be why it should be allowed, why it is allowable as admissible expenditure, and what facts and grounds and data are in favor of the SE on the issue should be clearly narrated. Submission should be like an explanation given an elementary school teacher to a student. This I am narrating it. Kindly make this point very clear. Submissions, I repeat, submission should be like an explanation given by an elementary school teacher to a student. It means the submission should be systematic and detailed to avoid misunderstanding, confusion, and lack of understanding of law, rules, and procedure. It should also explain how the expenditure is an allowable expenditure as explained above. The submission should always be substantial in all respects. The intention, motive, battery is running low. Huh? The submission should always be substantiated in all respects. The intention, motive, and aim of the SE is to make best use of the opportunity given by the assessment center when submission is filed. Next, the issues. Now we'll come to the issues one by one, because in the issues in faceless assessment. First of all, the main issue in the case of the first issue I dedicate to the housewife all over India, and also to my colleagues, my lady colleagues of chartered accountancy. The tribunal in the case of Srimati Uma Garwaliar versus ITO. Here, the cash deposits of 2,12,021,500 made by the housewife was disallowed and taxed at the rate of 150 under 115 BBE also. The similar on time and effort that here the tribunal has commented in a beautiful way. The sheer amount of time and effort that is dedicated to household by a lady who are more likely to be women than men is not surprisingly when one considers the plethora of activities of maid undertaken. A housemaker often prepares food for the entire family, manages the procurement of grocery and household shopping needs, cleans and manages the house and to its surroundings, undertakes household, manages budgets, and so much more. In rural households, they often also assist in sowing, the harvesting, and transplanting activities in the field, apart from rendering cattle. However, despite all the above, the consumption the housemaker do not work or they do not add economic value to the household is a problematic idea that has persisted for many years and must be overcome. There is an elaborate judgment. I have given it in the, you can go through the judgment where the tribunal has given a lot of respect to the one folk and they have deleted the addition of 2,21,000 paid by the assessing officer on cash deposits. This is the judgment time cost. Next issue is, after my issues are concerned, if anybody wants any qualification, they can come back after my my submissions are over, my lecture is over. Whether on facts and the circumstances of the case, the tribunal is correct in law in holding that unaccounted and excess stock found during the course of shall be assessed as business income at the rate of 30% or 60%. Here, the ITAT, here this is also, in this case, the Andhra Pradesh High Court very recently on 2nd August 2021 held that in the present case, the AO had issued show cause notice calling for explanation from the SC whether SS stock should be treated as undisclosed investment under 69 of the Act. In response to the notice, elaborate explanations are offered by the SC, which were fortifyingly consistent view by various benches of the tribunal as well as the high courts. The AO, upon consideration, accepted the explanation and taxed the additional income as business income 30% instead of 60% as per section 115 BBE of the Act. Here, the AP High Court said that when the SSC has offered it tax explanation and paid the tax accordingly, there is no need to, because when there is an addition, that is when there is a variation between the income returned and income assessed, the AP Court says that it should be taxed at 60%, but not at 30%. And the SSC already accepts the income and filed his return of income. There is no need to tax it at the rate of 60% instead of the 30% or whatever rate of tax is applicable for the SSC. These are the two judgments. Goes on. Another put in there. 115 BBE. 115 Hirapanna Jewellers. The judgment of Hirapanna Jewellers of Visakhapatnam bench is also applicable in this case, where the Vizag tribunal also has taken the same view and held that 115 BBE is not applicable when in the case of when the SSC himself had offered the income and paid the tax under self-assessment scheme itself. Next, this is another issue. Next, coming to the, here I got two issues in the case of trusts. In the case of trusts, one, the first issue is, this is the first issue which has gone to the national level also. This is the main point. Here, amount paid to the specified persons is unreasonable and why certain proportion should not be disallowed. This is the main point and which was taken up for scrutiny under limited scrutiny in this case of this trust. We have given the reply, unfortunately, by simply after receiving the notice under section 143(2) itself, we have given the information. But later on, they have given notice under section 142(1) calling for elaborate submissions and elaborate points, and we have filed those points also. And later on, we said this is the only issue involved in the limited scrutiny, and we have filed it. So we request your good self to accept it. And finally, they have accepted our submissions. All the above persons are in the roles of ITO and are assessed tax for the past several years. Their property income is examined by the ITO and no addition was made. Hence, the rental income paid to the above persons are reasonable and acceptable. Here, there are two issues: rent paid to the specified persons and salaries paid to the above persons. The salaries paid to above persons are similar to other doctors in the trust, and hence no addition is qualified. Basing on the tuitions and our submissions, we have filed our replies, and the National Assessment Center has accepted our submissions, and the assessment was completed on the basis of the income return. Now, the next, another trust issue in the case of trust. Here, this trust is having, this is a religious trust, which is recognized under section 1023(c)(5) of the Income Tax Act. Why the income from petrol bunks should not be taxed in the hands of the trust or society? They have said why the petrol bunk income should not be taxed. That this point, then we have taken the petrol bunkers West long back and intended to the pilgrims who visit the temple. The ITAT Visakhapatnam bench for the assessment year 10-11 already decided the issue, a copy of which is herewith enclosed, as it is a jurisdictional tribunal. I quote, why I am enclosing this one is, I am quoting the jurisdictional tribunal, and also a copy of it is also enclosed. It has already followed by the AO, as the jurisdiction has to be followed by the AO, as the jurisdiction of the SC has not changed. Hence, the AO is bound by the ITO order, which is the highest fact finding authority. This is the submission made by us to the E-Assessment Center. Unfortunately, they have obeyed the ITAT order, and the assessment was completed by accepting that petrol bunk income is also a part and parcel of the trust income, which is related income, and which is exempt under section 1023C5. These are the two issues which are, to my knowledge, under the trust, as far as I have faced. But these are more complicated. These two issues are already being dealt with. For your information, I am sharing this information. Next. And this issue comes for every person mostly. Issues on provident contribution by employer and employee, section 36, 154 and 5A. Here the issue is PF paid by the employee is in excess of 27% of the salary as per rule 87. Here this is a different one. The total salary is there. In this case, the total salary is 24,84,333. The EAPF paid is the total EPF paid is 7,16,139, which is 28.83%. You kindly note that why I am giving this illustration is the total EPF paid, that is the employer's share and employee's share, is more than 20% of the salary. So the employer's share is 11.99%, employee's share is 11.99%, and employer's share is 16.84%. This is our submission to the assessment center. Even though the total PF paid is more than 27% of salary, but each employer's contribution as well as employee's contribution is less than 27%. Hence, no disallowance called for, as there is no violation as per rule 87 and rule 88. So both deals with employers and employees share, and each is less than, so they have accepted that it is less than the limit prescribed, and the assessment order is passed without making any addition on this point. This is most critical. This everybody will have this. The employee's contribution received and not paid within the due date under PF Act to be considered as income as per section 36(1)(5)(a). As per Provident Fund Act, this is one case where there is more addition, because if the employee's share is not paid within the due date as per the Provident Fund Act or ESI Act, it will be added as income under section 28. Up to the assessment year 2021, there is no problem. But from 1/4/2021, there is an amendment in the Finance Act 2021, which I have discussed in the latter part of my slide. But I have discussed how, as per Provident Fund Act, both employees' share as well as employees' share should be paid along with the employer's contribution. The problem with Provident Fund payment is, in the case of Provident Fund payment, both employer's share as well as employees' share should be paid simultaneously. So the Visakhapatnam bench, in the case of APEDCL as well as in a number of other decisions, have taken this view that when Provident Fund Act takes both employer's share and employees' share together, and the amount has to be paid, then instead of following 36(1)(5)(a), they said section 43B is applicable. And hence, if the employer pays the Provident Fund both of the employee as well as employer and employer within the specified time under section 43B, then no addition is called for. This was the decision of Visakhapatnam bench in APEP, Andhra Pradesh Electronic Power Distribution Corporation, which is being followed consistently by the tribunal. But now in Finance Act 2021 has inserted an explanation to section 36(1)(5)(a), so as to provide that the provision for section 43B shall not apply and shall be deemed to never to have been applied for the purpose of determining the due date under section 36(1)(5)(a). That means the due date has to be as per the due date prescribed under the respective acts. The horrible thing is, suppose every month the contribution of employees is not paid within the due date, every month that employee's contribution will be disallowed, or not disallowed, it will be treated as income. So every time, even 12 months, even though it is paid yeah, 1 or 2 days later, that contribution paid on behalf of the employees will be deemed to be your income. This is the most dangerous situation in the Income Tax Act, and there is no other way because they have amended the act now. Next. Next, issues in commission. This is here the SSE before going to the స్లోగా వెళ్దాం. ఒకటి ఈచ్ కేసు డిస్కస్ చేద్దాం. ఎంత పూర్తిగా డిస్కస్ చేయాలి. Upon a perusal of ITR submitted to you, it has been observed that you have 8 pages that you have ITR and also at 8 pages of ITR and also claimed that page number 8 of ITR claimed that you have paid commission of rupees 51,66,780 at column 22 of commission page 10 of ITR, and the same has been debited as expenses in your profit and loss account. Kindly furnish the copy of ledger of commission received and paid. This is the issue involved. Here the SSE is a dealer in, is only a commission agent for fertilizers. But there is no, our reply, see our reply, how we have replied. The details of 52,18,446 are as follows. One is commission sales. Commission sales are 51,66,780. Commission received is 51,666. That means the total comes to 52,18,446. This is the total amount. The amount of 51,66,780 shown in column 22(2) of commission page 10 of ITR is nothing but the purchase made on behalf of farmers from NutriCraft India Private Limited, and the account copy of that company is herewith enclosed. We got discount of 3,75,757 on the entire commission purchases on behalf of farmers, and an amount of 2,207 got as credit notes from CP Freights India Limited. Here, this person purchases from CP Freights India Limited on behalf of various farmers, for which he gets the discount is from the form of commission in the form of discount from that company, which is being submitted. The point involved is in the income tax form, there is no separate column for commission sale or commission purchases. Only direct purchase and sale is shown, but not commission purchases. Why? Because tomorrow there may be problems when this newly introduction 194Q coming up. There are 206(1)H in the TDS. There the entire sales or entire purchases will be taken into account and deduction TDS will be deducted respectively. Then there will be problem with regard to 26As as well as the commission shown by the parties. So the party may show only the net amount commission only, whereas 26As shows the gross total sales amount and on which this TDS is being made. Then there is a problem with regarding to conversion of scrutiny, and we are inviting scrutiny because of this problem, and that's why it is better to show commission purchase and commission sales in the income tax return to avoid such type of problems. Then they have asked that as we are not paying any commission to the question of TDS do not arise. Unfortunately, the commission purchases and commission sales which were reflected in the P&L account enclosed in the audit report was shown as commission received and commission paid. And in ITR, there is no specific column for commission purchase and commission sales in ITR. We request you to kindly excuse the matter. This is what I have already stated, that there is no column for separately for commission purchase and commission sales. So we are unable to give that, and we have given the details of commission. And as it is commission is not to the farmers, and no TDS is to be made because it is given in the form of discount. Hence, TDS provisions are not applicable for us. Next. Now I'll come to, this is one of the beautiful judgments of the Vizag Tribunal. Why I am asked seeking Vizag Tribunal is it is our jurisdictional tribunal, and when once we quote the Vizag bench, naturally the AO, even though he's stationed at Delhi or Gujarat or Madhya Pradesh, he has to follow our jurisdictional tribunal only, but he cannot say the jurisdictional tribunal of Gujarat or jurisdictional high court of Bombay is not applicable for us, and he can't insist us. So this is better policy for us to always keep in mind to quote the local judgment of the ITAT of Visakhapatnam bench, and as well as the bench of High Court of Andhra Pradesh. We can also quote the Hyderabad tribunal, but it is only another High Court's judgment or another tribunal. So we can't take it as 100% accurate. So we have to always rely upon the judgment of our own tribunal. Here, in Muhammad Ali Sheikh versus ITO, the DCAT is Guntur versus Kalam, and also Kalam Housing Estate Private Limited. Here, the facts of the case are, I'll deal with the facts of the case. Here, in both the cases, they are real estate dealers. What they have done is, both the real estate dealers purchased agricultural lands from the farmers and paid cash to the farmers and showed the agricultural land as stock in trade, because for a real estate dealer, agricultural land is only a stock in trade. Hence, but the assessing officer, once it is taken as stock in trade, he has concluded that he has paid in the amounts in violation of the provisions of section 48(3), because it was paid to farmers and the amount exceeds the specified limit, maybe about 20,000 or 10,000, whatever it may be at that time. SC should not carry the business without cash payments to purchase these lands were initially acquired as an investment. After obtaining the necessary land conversions, these land was introduced as stock in trade and then put to sale. Here, the SSC first thought that he has to be taken as an investment in his balance sheet. Later on, after getting permission, he took it as stock in trade. In the remand report, that is, it was finally submitted that cash purchases were inevitable and thus proves the business expediency in this case. Generally, everybody feels that business expediency is now not considered at all, generally, because in all the cases of 48(3), only when it comes under the exceptions as per Rule 6(3)(d) specified, then only we are winning the cases. This is the clear-cut case where business expediency was also considered by the Vizag tribunal. In the case of both cases, they have given elaborate discussion. For the purpose, next slide. Next, the next issue involved is why TDS on interest paid for delayed payment of purchases should not be disallowed under section 40(a)(1)(a). Here, the case is of the SSC is a trader. He purchases the commodities from various persons, and there is delay in payment of the purchase price. This happens regularly in the case of our Jaggery market also, where if it is not paid within 5 days of purchase, the person will charge at the rate of 1.85% of the value. 1.85%. That will be around roughly 22% per annum, which is to be paid to the seller. Here, the income tax officer said, why it should not be disallowed? Because you have not paid the TDS under section 194(a) of the Income Tax Act. Now, the issue is whether it is really an interest. Interest paid on the sales on the purchase price is only a part and parcel of the purchases, and no TDS as payment is required because it is a part of purchase, but it is not an interest. The assessing officer should not be carried away by the wording the interest, simply interest. Simply it is called as interest. The assessing officer cannot be taken the view that section 194 is applicable and hence TDS is not paid and hence section 40A1A is applicable. So considering the judgment in the case of Venkatesh Paper Agencies versus CAT 24taxpan.com Hyderabad Tribunal, and that interest collected for late payment of sales is not interest and hence no need to deduct TDS for late payment. This is again there are another issue. Suppose there will be contracts. Suppose a person is asked to submit sales contract. In the case of sales contract also there will be an agreement. An agreement between two parties is also a contract as per the contract as per the Indian Contract Act 1872. A contract under Indian Contract Act 1872 is different from a contract envisaged under section 194A. So when a person is asked to, suppose the income tax department asks the tax publishers to supply around 1,000 taxman books for its all officers all over India for a specific price, and there is a contract is made, and the taxman will sell those books to the income tax department at that rate, and the department pays the amount. Here it is purely a contract of purchase and sale only. It is not a contract of works. There is no a contract of works involves where some other categories also there. Suppose any other additional value is done on that day. Suppose paper is purchased on which some certain printing and other matters are as specified by the dealer. If it is done, then it is called as it has to come under the clutches of section 194C. Whereas in this case, it is purely a purchase and sale, and hence the provisions of section 194C are not applicable, and hence 40A1A is not applicable. Again, there is another case of various tribunals held in the case of the stamp vendors associations, where the stamp vendors they sell and they get some conditional discount, but it is called as commission. But it is in fact it is not a commission; it is only a discount. So section 194H on commission is not applicable for them, and the tribunals held that 194 is not applicable. And once 194H is not applicable, the provisions of section 40A1 are also not applicable. So in this case also we can, so all these case laws have to be considered while furnishing the information before the Faceless Assessment Authority. Now I come to peculiar facts are coming up. Whether waiver of loan is monetary benefit taxable under the head business or profession. Why? Because now there are waivers are going on nowadays. Sometimes because of the government policy or something, the banks may waive certain part of their loan. Then we have to consider two issues: whether it is an issue of waiver of loan in toto, or waiver of principal amount, or waiver of interest amount. That difference has to be demarcated into. When if it is a waiver of interest amount, then we have to see whether interest was already debited in the profit and loss account and claimed as an expenditure under section 36(1)(3) of the Income Tax Act earlier. If you have claimed the interest as an expenditure earlier, now the interest of that expenditure is waived to that extent it has to be taken as income under section 41(1) of the Income Tax Act. But sometimes it is a capital expenditure or suppose we have capitalized the interest. Then in such case, even though the interest of waiver is also not to be considered as income under section 41(1) of the Income Tax Act. Now, here in these cases, the bank has waived the loans, certain part of loans are total. Suppose if it is 100 crores and in case of settlement, one-time settlement scheme, they have paid only 70 crores. This 30 crores is only a capital receipt and it is not to be taxed. Fortunately, till now, there is no amendment. And if the government thinks, they may tomorrow they may say it is only a capital gain. A capital gain, it has to be taxed under at the rate of 20% in future. At present, it is now a capital receipt not to be taxed. Next. In the case of the Visakhapatnam, there are two case laws I have given. One is the Visakhapatnam bench in the case of Vasavi polymers. There are two conditions have to be, twin conditions has to be satisfied for this purpose. There must be a trading liability. That means the liability should be of trading and expenditure or loss which has incurred by the taxpayer in earlier years. Previously has to incur that expenditure. And the same was allowed as a deduction. So these conditions have to be taken together. Then only it will be taken as income under section 41(1). Previously, I have told, suppose if you claimed income interest part as an expenditure and the interest part was allowed as income was now waived, that interest has to be interest subvention scheme. After that cyclone in Hudud cyclone, some of my clients got certain interest subvention. Then I have verified that that interest is being taken into profit and loss account or was capitalized. If it is capitalized, I did not take it as income. And if it is taken into the revenue, then I have considered it as income. Similarly, in 41(1) also, one issue comes, everybody may forget. Suppose you have claimed bad debts earlier. Generally, most of us forget. I think this is a ticklish issue which we will forget. The bad debts will be taken because once it is debited to profit and loss account, it will be allowed as an expenditure under section 36. But the point involved is once when you get something from the bad debt after court decree, after selling, suppose the agri-gold issue or something else, and once you get some benefit out of the bad debt, that has to be treated as income under section 41(1) of the Income Tax Act. So this is the case law, and there is another Bombay High Court judgment. Bombay High Court held in the case of SR Shipping. Section 28 of the ITA refers to value of any benefit or perquisite, whether convertible into money or not, arising from the exercise of business or profession. The Supreme Court held that waiver of loan would amount to cash receipt and not a benefit or perquisite other than in the shape of money in the hands of taxpayer, and therefore was not taxable under section 230(a)(4) of the Income Tax Act. This is with regarding to these are the issues. Next, and the next I will go. These are the issues. Now coming to, I will take 1 minute time for my is being issued by the Faceless Assessment Center. The following points must be taken into. They are not there in the slide, but you must. First point is immediately after taking the notice, the first thing you have to go through is your audit report. Generally, they will ask for your tax audit report. First thing they will ask about the tax audit report. Then you have to verify the sales and purchases along with the GST returns. Then you have to verify the gross profit ratio and the net profit ratio, and also the expenses with the comparative analysis along with the 2 to 3 years of comparison, so that the expenditure is consistent or the increase in expenditure is also reasonable. Comparative, there should not be any abnormal growth in expenditure, or there should not be any abnormal deviation in gross profit or net profit. In such cases, we have to face that difficulty. Then you have to see, immediately you have to download form number 26As. Then verify in form number 26 years, we can see the turnover which is reported which by the SOC is coming in 26 years form. So you have to verify the form 26 years and verify the turnover as per 26 years with the books of accounts. Then you have to go to the GST portal, verify form 1, form 2A, 2B, etc. and form 3B, and see whether they are in accordance with the books of accounts. If there is any variation in purchases or sales as reported to the GST authorities or in form 26 years or the books of accounts, a reconciliation has to be made and submitted to the concerned authority and substantiating the reasons for why there is difference. Generally, in case of sales which are exempted or zero rated, they are more negligent in filing the returns, and in such cases there will be a lot of variation between the returns reported to the GST authorities and the books of accounts. This should be very carefully be scrutinized, and your reply should be very clear cut. Otherwise, tomorrow there will be some problem with the, they may take the entire thing as income between. Of course, generally the books of accounts figures will be more than the GST figures because exempted turnover may not be reported. Next issue is regarding to the 48.3 payments reported. Generally, everything may not come under the purview of 48.3. There are certain exceptions dealt in 48.3 under Rule 6DD. One of the things is we have in rural areas, particularly in and around Anakapalli, we are having hilly areas, that is Paderu, Chintapalli, Araku, etc. In those hilly areas, the payments are made on shandy days. Shandy days will be conducted in various villages of the hill areas. There, in those hill areas, there may not be any banking facilities in those villages, or the persons are reluctant to take checks because they are not in a position to encash the checks, etc. And hence they do not have any phone pay services or etc. because the telephone system or networking in those hill areas also, in those remote areas is also very poor, and they are reluctant to accept even the phone pay service or net to accept. Hence, the SSCs are bound to pay them in cash. For that, there is an exception in Rule 6DD, where there are the following are the rules 6DD. When a payment is made for an agricultural produce to a farmer of the agricultural produce, or a forest produce also is included there. So in case a forest produce is purchased from the hill areas of the farmers, then the payment which is coming under the exception of 48.3 where the payment is made, these are the following: where the payment is made by credit arrangement through bank exceptions, or where the payment is made for the purchase of agricultural or forest produce, or the produce of animal husbandry, or fish or products, fish products. But here one of the ITOs very cleverly pointed out long back in case of agricultural produce. He said, what is the basis that you have purchased from the farmers? You catch my point? Here in the case of agricultural produce, you must prove that you have purchased it from the farmers. Otherwise, there is difficulty that you will be coming under the clutches of section 48.3. So in 48.3, as far as agricultural produce is concerned, when once you purchase from farmers, better to take their land holding certificates, patadar passports, etc., and name of the person, so that you can say that these are the persons which are I have received forest agricultural produce from these persons, and it is for business purposes, and it rule comes under rules 6DD. There is one more exception which is there in rule 6DD is K, where the payment is made by a person who is agent, who is required to make payment in cash for goods. Here, one of our members long back has commented upon on this issue of rule 6DDK, whether a partner can be taken as an agent and an exception can be made and payment can be made under 48.3 and avoid rule 40, and avoid section 48.3. Here, under the Partnership Act, a partner is both an agent as well as principal. So he is having a dual capacity. In such cases, whether the payment is done through the partner, can we take an exception under rule 6DDK? It is left to the audience because it depends upon the thinking of the assessing officer. Particularly when the assessing officer is now in faceless mode, it is difficult to convince him. So better not to take such chance. In such cases, better to employ an agent, a commission agent, and make payment from through him, and you pay certain amount to him as commission also, so that you can prove that you have made payment to the commission agent and he in turn has made the payment to those persons. So this is the case with regarding to 48.3. These are the things which we come across in 48. Next is related parties, 48.2b. This is one of the things which we do in our tax audit. Generally, our submission in the tax audit is only to give details of the payments made and the relationship made. That there our professional thing is over. But it is the duty of the income tax officer to see whether it is reasonable or unreasonable. The reasonability is not fixed upon our head. That is taken care of by the income tax officer. So we have to prove that the relationship as well as the payment is within the limits of the market value. Suppose a salary is paid to the husband, which is almost the same with regarding to other employees, then the income tax officer may accept it. In other cases, he may say it is most unreasonable and make an addition. The most important thing in this 48.2b is, in 48.2b, the addition will be made in the hands of the firm. But again, the same will not be allowed in the hands of the recipient. The recipient will be taxed as it is, but addition will be made in the hands of the firm. So there will be double addition. But still, that is prevalent. We can't say, we can't amend the act. Till now, that is a double taxation, but it is prevalent because some taxpayers want to avoid tax. They may use their relatives for the purpose, and hence section 48.2b was there, which is incorporated in the act, as well as it is to be noted down in the audit report as well as. Next, with regarding to payments to non-residents. Generally, non-residents who are not very careful, because the people say, no, I have purchased, I have sold the document. But the thing is, he has sold on behalf of a son who is a non-resident. When he sells on behalf of a non-resident, section 195 will be applicable. And the maximum rate, whatever rate has to be applied to a non-resident has to be applied. And there is no other provision. So, and hence it has to be disallowed under section 40A1 instead of 40A1. Then coming to the section 50C, this is 47A and section 56, because they are also there in our audit reports also. If there is a variation between the stamp value authority as well as to the books of accounts or to the purchase price, and if the variation is less than 10%, the department is accepting it. If it is more than 10%, in the case of the seller, 50C is applicable, and that has to be taken care of in under the head capital gains. Whereas in 56, it has to be taken as income from other sources, unless that other person is not his relative. Now, I have forgotten the judgment. Very recently, a peculiar thing has come, judgment has come. If the land sold is agricultural land, then 56 is not applicable. Generally, we are thinking that 56 is applicable, but he said in the immovable property, there is an explanation in section 56(1). And once you take the value and add this income, tomorrow if you sell this asset, the amount of value will be subjected to capital gains. That value has to be taken in for indexation purposes. That was the explanation was given. That means they are thinking about only capital assets. So I could not recollect. I will give that judgment of the court. The court held that because it is agricultural land, which is not a capital asset as defined in the Income Tax Act, hence the provisions of section 56(1)(10) will are not applicable. Hence, no addition is called for. I think it is Vizag ITAT or a relative judgment of the AP High Court or judgment, but which I have seen it. This to be taken care of. Long back, this point was wrong, by mistake mentioned by our SIRC chairman of Tirupati. He said agricultural lands sold will not come under the clutches of section 56. And we have said, no, it is applicable. But this judgment finds support to him. Next point is, in the case of submission to the assessing officer, always be submissive. Even though everything is in your favor, don't try to be writing any abusive words or anything. Better say, this is our submission, conformed with facts as well as case laws, and say that the honorable submissions, the learned AO, they consider all our submissions into consideration, and you may accept the income return. Almost in every case now, most of the SSCs are happy with this faceless assessment. But the thing is, it is difficult to convince everything under faceless assessment, because there are some issues which may not be taken care of by the authorities. Because particularly in the case of builders, there can be two methods of accounting being followed consistently by the builders. That is complete contract method and proportionate method. There is rules of accounting standards, and ICDS rules are also there. Still, if the SSC follows consistently different method of accounting for different ventures, that has to be followed. And to convince them and to substantiate our claim with the accounting standards of the institute, ICDS, etc., it is really difficult for a person to substantiate his claim through his written submissions. Because in written submissions, the understanding of the department may be different from the view of the chartered accountant or the client. So it will be better in such cases. It is better to go for video conferencing and ask. Then in video conferencing, you can give your detailed explanations, and then even in still it is not possible. We cannot help it, because other than video conferencing, there is no other alternative given by the CBDT, and only in case of that is survey cases where that is paper level, it is scrutinized with faceless, not faceless, with examination through books of accounts, and we have to appear before the authorities. The interesting point which I observed before chartered accountants is, we have forgotten this principle, and when the assessing officer asks us in central circle to come to his office to give our submissions, some of our chartered accountants are saying, why you are asking us to come? It is faceless assessment. They have forgotten the fact that faceless assessment is applicable only for ordinary assesses, but not for survey and such cases. It is in such cases, survey cases and international taxation cases, they are to be manually done, because the books of accounts will be under the disposal of the department. So it is after verifying the books of accounts and other things, then only you have to give our submissions. And I am happy to say before you, I am a part and parcel of the income tax department few years back, and I know the difficulties of the income tax department and also my difficulty. And because I was interested with special audits under section 142 2A in a number of cases, which is around 127 in number. And it is very difficult to do a tax audit under 142 2A. And the SSC will treat us like an income tax officer, and he will never give any information. Then you know how the income tax officer is feeling difficulty in ascertaining the information and completing the assessment. So we should always step our shoes and think like an assessing officer and then proceed to the assessment. Not that we're always, we should not always support the SSC, because certain things which are in favor of the department, we should openly accept it. And once we openly accept it and give a revised computation of income, etc. And in the note also we can say this is only by mistake I have done or misinterpretation of law. Hence, this may not be treated as under reporting of income or section 68, 69A reporting, and should not be taxed at a higher rate, and an ordinary rate of tax may be taken care of. In such cases, the assessing officer will also be generous, and he may complete the assessment basing on the admissions made by us voluntarily at the time of assessment. He may not give that point at all, but we may come across certain points which are to be made as an addition. And once you make those additions and point out those matters to the assessing officer and ask him to complete and pay the tax before he completes the assessment, then it will be taken care of as our voluntary income, and there will not be any penalty. Or if any penalty proceedings are initiated, they will be taken care of leniently. So these are my submissions on various aspects of scrutiny assessment in faceless assessment era. Why? Because I am saying is, my father is in practice from 1951, and I know the income tax department from 1967 or onwards. And another point is, my father-in-law was a joint commissioner of income tax who worked as an assessing officer for the past 27 years. And I worked with the department under special audit. So all these things make me that I have to think before I give a negative reply to the department. So first view in the point of income tax department, they have already circulated a book on various case laws in support of the income tax department, which are around 500 in number at present. And there is one CD also which are in favor of the department. So they may also say these are the case laws which are in our favor, and that's why you are making addition. So kindly look into those case laws which are in favor of the department, and then come to our case laws and see that our High Court overrides those case laws. Then only it will be beneficial for us. Long back, my mentor and our first chairman of the branch, Sri B.V. Ramarao Garu, used to give replies like that. He used to take all the ITRs with him, with the flaps also at that time. All the flaps once in the left side, the departmental view, and the right side, which are in favor of the SSC, are taken care of. And he always used it to submit before the authorities that the left side are the favorable decisions which are in favor of the department. But these decisions override those decisions. These are more recent judgments. They have overruled the judgments of the department, and hence the SSC submissions may be accepted. Such is the way we should proceed before the faceless assessment order also, so that assessing officers will also be convinced by your method of submission, and tomorrow there may not be additions. Now coming to some peculiar things which are happening in faceless assessment is the understanding of section 43B, which I came to notice before the I want some replies from you also, from the audience or whoever it may be, the members. What is section 43B? Section 43B is an expenditure notwithstanding anything contained in the process. That starts with notwithstanding clause that says an expenditure has to be allowed only on actual payment basis. That means irrespective of the method of accounting followed by the assessee, the amount will be allowed only when it is paid. I have two cases, one under faceless, one under face. For the assessment year 1780, the same issue in another case has come. I have appeared before the assistant commissioner. He asked, why should I allow? Because your loan is 70 lakhs, your interest is more than 2 crores. That means the interest is part tax is more than 3 times the loan outstanding. No doubt he is correct in law, saying that it is unreasonable. But then I have stated that the law is like that. Suppose if I claimed that expenditure in my profit and loss account, then in that assessment year, I have to disallow it under section 43B because I will not be entitled to the provision basis method of accounting. Only when that amount is paid to the bank, then I will be entitled to the interest payment. Similar issue came before 1890. Same submissions were made, but the AO is not. He reiterated the section 43B in toto and said the earlier interest of previous years should not be considered as an expenditure, and hence he has disallowed the expenditure. Now there are two clues. Now I have forgotten to say that again in spite of faceless assessment, there are two possibilities for us which can be under facial scheme. You can have a facial. You can go to the assessing officer, show your face, and then ask for certain concessions. One is when once an assessment is already completed on section 143.3, you have got right under 154. Then you have right under section 264. These are the two sections that came into mind. These are like paper revaluation, paper recounting. When an external examiner already finalizes the order and comes to the university, the students will then refer it to the counting of the marks or revaluation of the marks, revaluation of the paper. Counting of marks comes under 154. Revaluation comes under 264. That is my humble view. In 154, you have already submitted on the facts. Suppose in the 43B case issue, 43B is very clear cut. Very clear cut. So it is done on the basis of payment basis, irrespective of the year it relates. Suppose even it relates to previous years, it has to be allowed when it is paid. So 43B is applicable. When once it is 43B applicable, you can give your submissions to the AO, that is a jurisdictional AO. Then he can consider it and pass an order under section 154. This happens only when all the submissions were submitted to the AO, which were not considered or which were missed by the faceless AO, which have to be taken into account, which are in your favor. If that is there, then only the assessing officer can consider. This will be happening in very few cases. In other cases, if there are some other issues which can be taken by the 264 by the Commissioner of Income Tax, then also you can approach the Commissioner of Income Tax and say and give your submissions and see that the assessment made under section 143.3 by the Faceless Assessment Center may be struck down. Then he may give, if it is a reasonable submission, then he will consider your issue and the assessment framed by 143.3 under by the Faceless Center will be struck down. These are my two views on the faceless assessment, where you have got small chance to appear before the authorities and consider your claim before you go to CIT appeals. Why I am not insisting for CIT appeals is the CIT appeals is also a faceless era. Now, after September 23rd or 25th, all CIT appeals 2020, everything is faceless. Once it became faceless, they are not disposing of the appeals at all. That is the most important point. There is no time limit for the state appeals to consider your case. In such a cases, we have to pay the 20% tax, which may be abnormal in case of certain SSCs. So we have to seek 154 or 264. And there is one more point which is to be considered is if you go for 154, there is another chance. Not that you should win or lose. The chance is when once you make a petition under 154, the demand the demand will be under consideration because they will not ask. There is no threaten for that demand. Even you need not pay the 20% tax because you said when they ask us to pay 20% tax, you can say that 20% tax are to kept in abeyance because you have already made a petition under 154, which is under consideration before the jurisdictional level. And after finalization of the 154 petition, then we will consider the payment of 20% tax. So this is the case. I thought it is sometimes better for us to go for 154 in case of huge demands. Now I want your replies on 43B. What are the things whether my view is correct under section 43B is regarding to interest payment of earlier years now paid in the year where interest is paid. Any queries from the members?
Sir, there are few queries in the chat box. Will you be answering now or at the end of the session, sir?
Just give me 1 minute time, I'll come back.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
paid before the due date. Expenses to be allowed. 43B ఎప్పుడు నాకు నాదా డ్యూ డేట్ ఆఫ్ ఫైలింగ్ కదా. ఎపిడిసిఎల్ కదా అదే వైజాగ్ నుంచి. సైటెడ్ ట్యాక్స్ మన లేదా ఎపిడిసిఎల్ లో 88 చాపట్నం బెంచ్ సైటేషన్ లేదా అందులో. The citation of expenditure on payment basis with regarding to Provident Fund is in the case of Eastern Power Distribution Corporation by arising at ITA number 403, Vizag bench. That link also I have given it to you. So you can open the link and you can see the judgment. And this judgment is being followed in a number of other cases also. I did not for the other reasons I did not say because issue is same. I did not put other case laws. But the thing is from the assessment year 21-22 this may not be applicable because they have amended the act from 1/4/2021. Unmute chesava? Chesava? Next question ఏముంది చూడు ఒక్కొక్కటి చూడు. In the case of leasehold lands, the leasehold right is also you have to prove that it is a leasehold land, because even in the case of leasehold land, a separate pattadar passbook is being given to the persons who cultivate on lease basis. In that way, you can say you can prove that it is a leasehold land. Generally, it will be with the MRO. They will get that registration, that agreement between the pattadar that the owner and leaseholder will be given, and a separate passbook is being issued nowadays. So leasehold lender is also having that facility, and basing on it only you have to prove. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to prove under 48. Next point. In video conference, whether we have to request in the separate letter or mail, ask for submission on hearing date. In the case of video conferencing, there is a separate icon is there for video conferencing. So option is there. If you click on it, then they will give a date for video conferencing. If on the date, they will fix the date and timing, and you can submit your grievances on the day personally through video conferencing. If there is any glitches, they will immediately give another date for hearing, even in the video conference. Next question, answer. Next, adangal. Next, next,
Sir, shall I read the question, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, a question from Bandar Venkateswar garu.
It was answered, you know?
Regarding the payments to farmers.
Farmers, because they are issuing even the leasehold rates are also separate. Leasehold rate passbook is also being issued nowadays. I have seen it very recently. So if you produce that, then also it can be taken as a conclusive evidence. But the thing is, one, you should know the Supreme Court has given the separate guidelines for the purpose of agricultural land. Then elaborate judgments were given by the Supreme Court that land should be that the tree and plantation should be from the land itself. That's why the fish farming and horticulture are not fish farming and other things are fish and prawns were not considered as, even that poultry are not considered as agricultural income, but they have considered the nursery as agricultural income because it deals with the plants only. So everything that deals with botany, simply everything that deals with botany is considered as agricultural, and if it is zoology is entering into that, it will not be considered. A simple distinction between agriculture and non-agricultural operations on the land is, if botany is involved, it is agriculture. If zoology is involved, it is non-agriculture. Even in the case of fish farming also, they have given separate guidelines way back in 1992 by the Andhra Pradesh person, Mr. Swami, Sivaswamy, the then chairman of CBD. A person hailing from Andhra Pradesh, having fish ponds in Bhimavaram, has given a notification saying that each fish pond can be estimated at the rate of 16,000 per unit. Now that was now considered in Vizag tribunal in one case. Then they have increased it to around 20,000 per this thing and given the judgment very recently in a search case by the ITAT Vizag bench 2-3 years back. If you go to judicial portal of the ITAT, you can download all the judgments of Vizag bench. I am having almost more than 6,500 to 7,000 judgments of the ITAT itself of Vizag bench. So it is useful in case of this faceless assessment because you can go through all the judgments and then have a record of it section wise. And whenever that arises, when the question arises from the faceless assessment center, you can give that submissions quoting the Vizag bench tribunal. Similarly, if any person resides anywhere, basing on the portal, you can download those judgments and get back the record and submit your thing. Because most of the reported judgments are only hardly 20% and 80% of the judgments are unreported. Fortunately, because of this networking facility, we can get all the judgments, both reported and unreported. Previously, reported means only reported in ITRs, etc. But now we can get any judgment from the net, internet, even from Google also. But Google also, somebody is taking away and ask us to pay certain amount. I don't know why that thing is mishap is happening. Sometimes certain people say you have to pay this much amount for the purpose of getting download of judgments, or you can go to directly to the portal and download your judgments. Next. Any query? Other queries?
శర్మ, పట్టాదారు పాస్ పుస్తకం రెవెన్యూ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ కూడా సరిగా ఇవ్వట్లేదు, చాలా డిఫికల్ట్ గా ఉంది. అటువంటిది లీజ్ హోల్డ్ వాళ్ళకి పట్టాదారు పాస్ పుస్తకం ఇవ్వమంటే ఇస్తారా? ఇప్పుడు మనం
ఎందుకంటే ఇవ్వడం అంటూ జరుగుతోంది కాబట్టి then the assessing officer may consider that, then he will go for verification unit, then your assessment will be under verification unit. The AO will verify the things, and once he finds that separate passbook is being given by the government for leaseholders, then we will be in trouble.
You know how much time it will take to get the
time is different. One thing is, when one thing is a fact,
లీజ్ హోల్డ్ ల్యాండ్ కి అడంగల్లో ఎంటర్ చేస్తారు ఎవరు సాగు చేస్తున్నారు. That is easy
can
to
be
get
taken
it.
as an evidence, prima facie. That is only a prima facie, may not be a conclusive. In the Evidence Act, there are two evidences. One is a prima facie evidence and other is a conclusive evidence. So prima facie evidence, you can take it and say that in Income Tax Act, Evidence Act is not fully applicable. Fortunately, Evidence Act is not fully applicable to Income Tax Department.
ఈవెన్ పట్టాదారు పాస్ పుస్తకాలు ఆల్సో పాతది ఎప్పుడో వచ్చారు, ఇప్పుడు ఏమంటే ఎవరు కదా, అవి ల్యాండ్ హోల్డింగ్ ఉన్నది లేదు కూడా తెలియదు.
And then you can ask them to verify from the verification unit. If they have got any doubt, you can ask let them write a letter to the concerned person and seek a clarification from the respect to Tahsildar or RDO, etc.
IGR సైట్ లో ఈ వెరిఫై చేయొచ్చు, అడంగల్ ఉన్నది లేదా?
సైట్ లో ఉండదే.
ఉన్నది.
And second thing is, and one point is, they can go through Google Map and also say can say that your land is agriculture or not agriculture, whether you are performing agricultural operations or not. That facility is also now with the department, and you cannot say that there are agricultural operations. They can prove that there are no agricultural operations also.
అది డిపార్ట్మెంట్ దగ్గర ఉన్నది కానీ మన దగ్గర లేదు కదా.
Of course, everything they have got at 365 degrees.
వాళ్ళకు ఉన్నది.
365 degrees was given contract of 4,200 crores was spent for 365 degrees. From they got it from Infosys to the income tax department.
They can verify the facts, but we cannot prove it.
That you have to prove. You have to rebuttal is important. Rebuttal is important. I did not mention about 269 SSRT actually.
Hello?
Because they are not a part of assessment. They come under penalty. Otherwise, I would have discussed about those things. But the unfortunate thing with the 269 ST is, even though you admit it as income, still you are penalized. 269 ST, where amount received in cash more than 2 lakhs. Suppose you receive more than 2.5 lakhs as cash shares from a single person, you will be penalized. For that person, it is only expenditure, and it will be disallowed, and he will pay tax at 30%. Whereas we will pay for the entire income under section 269.
మన అనకాపల్లి జాగరీ మార్కెట్ కేసే చూసుకో, రైతులు బెల్లం వేస్తారు, బెల్లం వేసిన తర్వాత అమౌంట్ ఉండిపోతుంది. వాళ్ళకి ఏం చేస్తారంటే వీళ్ళు సర్టన్ స్టేజ్ దాటిన తర్వాత 20,000 40,000 వాళ్ళ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఉన్న దాన్ని బట్టి వీళ్ళు క్యాష్ పే చేస్తారు రైతులకి. ఇన్ దట్ సిచ్యుయేషన్ అది డిజైర్ చేయాలా కదా? 269T అప్లై అవుతుందా?
You can take shelter under section 194 rule 6DDK through commission agent.
269T
ST ST it is not paid to you.
ST రైతులు మనం పే చేస్తాము.
Each payment
కాదు కదా. 269
ST is only regarding to receipt, not payment.
T 269T
comes under only deposits. 269 deals with deposits, not loans. Repayment of deposits.
రెండు యాడ్ అయ్యి కదా ఇప్పుడు.
Loans and deposits. 269 లో repayment of deposits.
Even loans, advances also considered as loan. No.
But it is not an advance. It is their money that was given back.
అవును, అటువంటిప్పుడు 269T అప్లై అవుతుంది కదా. రీపేమెంట్ ఆఫ్ అడ్వాన్స్ వస్తుందేమో డౌట్.
No, repayment of their sale profits from which you get commission is outside the purview of 269T.
అచ్చా.
Next. ఇంకెవరైనా queries?
Yeah, Prashant Kumar, I think you have some question you are asking.
So actually, regarding Faceless assessment, we tried to upload one submission which was not successfully submitted. That was the last due date. And ఏమైందంటే వెరిఫికేషన్ అవ్వలేదు సార్, ఈవీసీ వెరిఫికేషన్ అనేది అవ్వలేదు. Due to some technical problems with the website only.
Okay.
Whether in the next submission can we?
Yes. If it is not completed, you can file it.
Because they had given that is the due date, final due date.
No, that even though even though due date is there under the provisions or in their notice, if they did not complete the assessment, you can file it. They themselves are sometimes giving adjournments themselves voluntarily without our notice. You see some of the notices, they themselves are giving the adjournments because of the glitches in the site or something. They are giving the adjournments. But the thing is, you must be very careful every day and night that all the queries are answered. One mistake committed by me is thinking that they will ask some more questions, even though I have answered all the queries raised by them. I said the response is partial. Then they are saying that fellow is only saying partial response and evading. Then I said, I have already completed all your queries. But thing is, I thought that you will ask some more queries. That's why I said it is partial. And if you verify all my replies, you can know that I have already replied for each and every query you have called for. And second most important thing I want to submit before all of you is, while giving replies, I follow one method. It is better for you to follow. Date of notice and other things, make it in a tabular way. Tabular formation. First notice, serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, queries, reply. That means your reply should be a speaking one. You need not go to the query what is asked by him. So suppose 40A3 payments. There are no say 40A3 payments. Everything is done through account paycheck or what. So your reply should be like that. So 40A 1 year. This is not applicable. The provisions of section 194A are not applicable. Hence, this provision also not applicable. Like that, the query and the reply serially numbered should be in a tabular form and should be submitted to him, so that he need not go through what is the questions he has got. But unfortunately, one point what is happening in the e-assessment center is, once you have made a submission and when they give a second notice and some other points, they are not just going through to the already points which are asked, replied by you. So sometimes in a hasty, without considering those points, they are making assessments by adding certain incomes. They are not at all considering the points which were replied by us. First notice you give, they give 6 points, you have replied it. Then again, second notice, they give some other points, you give a reply. In the second notice, they will not consider the first notice points at all. Already the second note points might have been considered in the first notice, but they will not care for about it. And I don't know how far it is that this disputed resolution is there. There the commissioner's involvement is there also in the disputed resolution panel. So when once a dispute resolution panel is coming in, the commissioners are there, whether it is appeal has to be with the first appeal authority or to the tribunal, that nobody knows. There are two views possible. You can go for the CIT appeals. And another view is, when once a commissioner rank person is already interfered in the panel, then you have to go to the tribunal only, because that is the highest first fact finding authority. Or you have to go for a writ. There are some certain writs also. Very recently have gone to some Calcutta people have claimed it. Very interesting point. Even though the assessing officers have disallowed it, they have claimed cess as an expenditure. The education cess and the health cess is there in the Income Tax Act. Other than the tax, they have claimed the cess as an expenditure. I think that point is sometimes correct also, because cess is different from tax. Section 40A speaks of the income tax, wealth tax, etc. It doesn't speak of cess. So going by that way, they might have claimed it as an expenditure. But Income Tax Act always takes in their favor. The tax payment will not be allowed as an expenditure. The interest on refund will always be taken as income. The interest under 234A, B, C will not be allowed as an expenditure. But the interest under 244A and refund is treated as income. So వాళ్ళది ఏంటంటే, మా ఇంటికి వస్తే మాకేం తెస్తావు, మీ ఇంటికి వస్తే మాకేం పెడతావు, రెండు వాళ్ళకే ఫేవరబుల్గా ఉంటారు. The year I will quote, very recently the finance minister also announced one thing, that the relief for in this Vodafone's case, they have given certain relief on that Vodafone's case. They are going to refund it, that amount. For safe side, what they have done is, they said they are not going to give any interest. So if the interest is to be paid, it is to be in thousands of crores. So for safe side, they said we'll give you only the tax part, not the interest till date. So that is also in their favor. And if we ask for a waiver under 234 ABC, they will never give it. And the CBDT, the chief commissioner will say, I have no powers to waive it. Even though the powers are there with the chief commissioner, he was given certain guidelines. His hands are tied up. Unless those guidelines were followed, we can't waive the interest under 234 ABC. Whereas the government wants to pay interest, they amend the act and do it. So rendu they వాళ్ళకి favorable గానే చేసుకుంటారు. So always think in the view of the department. No, I felt it because the arrogancy of an income tax officer will be coming into our hands when we do a special audit. Do one special audit for the purpose of the department. Then you know how difficult it is to do an audit from the department side. Because you have to help the department now. Once you want to help the department, you have to see all the case laws which are in favor of the department. And once you pose it, though they will never reply. They will always seek adjournment, everything. And till the last time, we will complete that. Then they will say, no, we asked adjournment, these persons have not given. So kindly remit back. Or they say, kindly allow appeal. This is the way they do things. Of course, that is technical glitch. I can't say anything. Even if I do in their hand, if I behave, I will also may behave like that. But because I have sat in the shoes of the department as a special auditor, I know the difficulty, how the SSCs will give trouble to the department. So always my humble opinion is, first always think like an assessing officer in faceless assessment. Think as far as more, don't give any relief. As far as be cruel while in the faceless assessment with your assessing. Then you go on the things and find out the facts, case laws, then give the reasons, give him a favorable thing. Otherwise, he will never give and he will never obey you, because in faceless assessment, our hands are now tied down because the assessment powers were gone to the assessing officers. The CS are also having no control over their SSCs as in previously, except in case of such cases. Otherwise, the control of the chartered accountant over the client is very minute and is very difficult also. Because he knows everything because of WhatsApp and other internet facilities. He will give us information. Any other query?
Members, any more queries?
Any chart వస్తుందా? In fact, I have elaborately discussed about each and every case law.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I thought that
Yes.
time may not be sufficient for me to discuss about the facts in each tribunal decision. So I thought that's why I've given you a link also, so that you can see. But I am very much pleased by the judgment of Agra bench, that Agra bench, Gwalior bench, which is in favor of the women folk of India. There they have said a woman can have certain savings at all. We cannot totally reject the women folk. They are doing a lot of service without any money, both in the house as well as outside. So with due respects, they have given that savings of cash deposits should be allowed and should not be taxed. That is an elaborate judgment of more than 10 to 13 pages. But for time's sake, I did not give it. You can go all these judgments which I have given it. And in fact, I'm having more than 7,000 to 8,000, around 8,000 judgments of the ITAT Vizag itself. Wow. So I want to see section wise. I want to segregate it, which I have to take the help of some information technology expert, so that the section wise, if I get it, I can give my presentation in a better way. Anyhow, shall I conclude or any other questions?
Any other questions, members? I think there are no more questions from members, sir, with your detailed presentation and explanation with the case laws referring under Faceless as well as old era. So really so wonderful presentation from you, sir. The members attended got benefited with your deliberations. So now I request our branch secretary, Prashant Kumar.
Before that, I have got a last quotation. First,
Yeah,
I have
please,
quoted
sir.
Dr.
Yeah, yeah.
Radhakrishnan.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I quote Robert Frost is saying, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep. I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep."
శర్మ గారు బాగా పాడతారు.
Wonderful, sir.
శర్మ గారు బాగా పాడతారు. ఆయన త్యాగరాజ కీర్తన పాడుతుంటారు.
Oh, wonderful, sir. Really so nice.
నాకు అంత కీర్తనలు రావు కానీ ఐఎమ్ మోర్ ఇంట్రెస్టెడ్ ఇన్ తెలుగు సాహిత్యం మీద ఏదో కాస్త అది కూడా
So nice.
చాగంటి కోటేశ్వరరావు గారి మీద నా అసూయతో నేర్చుకున్నాను.
Okay.
టు బి ఫ్రాంక్ అన్నమాట. ఎందుకంటే ఆయన అంత అనర్గళంగా చెప్తున్నప్పుడు మనం ఇంత సయ్యే చదివి ఇంత పెద్ద పెద్ద పుస్తకాలు చదివి మనం కూడా ఎందుకు చెప్పలేమని కొంచెం చిన్న అసూయ. మంచిది అనుకోండి, పాజిటివ్ కానీ.
Yeah, of course. So nice, sir. So nice. Sir, we request you to send this PPT to our mail ID so that we can circulate to members also.
Okay,
Because you have compiled all the case laws, important case laws connected with Faceless era as well as earlier regime and all. So you please send us, sir. So we will circulate to the members for their benefit.
okay, I will,
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I will give it. Your link is there. We will immediately send it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Prashant.
Respected Chairman C.S. Krishna garu, Land Speaker, Senior Member, CA K.S.S.Sarma garu, past chairmen, senior members and other dignitaries. Good evening to all. I am privileged to propose thanks for the 5th day session of week-long webinar on my own behalf and behalf of the Visakhapatnam members. Sir, I convey my sincere thanks for accepting our invitation and sharing your valuable knowledge for the benefit of the members. Sir, your deliberations on Faceless assessment with the support of submission guidelines and other guidelines with a nice presentation is exhaustively covered and extremely well, sir. Our special thanks for providing deliberations on decided case laws under the Vizag Tribunal and other High Court Tribunal decided case laws, which were the very beneficial to our members. Thank you very much for your detailed deliberations, sir. Thank you very much. Dear members, tomorrow we have a session on a detailed study of presumptive taxation by CA M.V.Sarma garu, past chairman of Visakhapatnam branch from Visakhapatnam branch. I request all the members, please join the webinar tomorrow and get benefit out of it. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Sharma garu. Thanks a lot for your valuable time and effort, sir. Thank you. వాసుదేవమూర్తి గారు ఏంటి మాట చెప్తున్నారా?
వాసుదేవమూర్తి గారు చూస్తున్నారు కదా,
స్టక్ అయినట్టుందండి, నెట్ ఇష్యూ. వాసుదేవమూర్తి గారు ఏమైనా మాట్లాడుతున్నారా?
Faceless assessment doubt clear అయ్యాక శర్మ గారు deliberations వల్ల.
మీ టైటిల్ షీట్ మాత్రం చాలా యాప్ట్ గా ఉంది సార్, బాగుంది సార్, ఇన్నోవేటివ్ గా ఉంది.
చూసి పూర్వం కృష్ణ ఓ సినిమాలో వేసాడు చాలా కాలం క్రితం. ఏదో మందు తాగితే వాడు మాయమైపోతాడు. కోట వేసుకుంటే కోటే కనపడుతుంది, మనిషి కనపడదు. అది బై మిస్టేక్ ఒక ల్యాబ్ లోకి వెళ్ళి ఏదో తాగిస్తాడు మంచినీళ్ళు.
ఇన్విజిబుల్ మ్యాన్
టోటల్లీ కోట్ వేసుకుంటే కోటే కనపడుతూ ఉంటుంది. So this is the only thing I am feeling very bad about faceless assessment is my face value will be gone.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So there is no gender discrimination, there is no facial discrimination between any person. He may be a chartered accountant, an advocate, whether he may be Harish Salve or palki wala or whoever it may be, they lose their value because it is all faceless. Perhaps that is the intention of the present government. And I feel the best thing this procedure should be implemented is the registration authorities, sub-registrar authority, which is under the control of the ministry, central government only. Generally, Registration Act is central government, but implementation is state government. Similarly, the Motor Vehicles Act. The Motor Vehicles Act is under the central government, but run by under the control of state government. If these two things along with GST is made as faceless, then the tune begins. Then the revenue collections may come in a different way. But I think sincerely, because income tax department, hardly 1% of the cases are subjected to scrutiny. Whereas in sub-registrar office and motor vehicles, everything is scrutiny and everything is everything. So when we go straight away, our things will never be done. When we go through some the RTO agent, our things will be done immediately. And similarly in sub-registrar office, because there is no licensing system, still their votes prevail. And I don't know why chartered accountants are not in drafting, because we can draft a deed and file it to registrar office, but most of our chartered accountants never take up the duty. Most of the drafting is done by either by advocates or by this 10th class value fellows, sub-registrar document writers. They don't have any knowledge about other laws. It is better for chartered accountants to go into the field of documentation, because documentation, even though lawyers can do a better job, but their knowledge of income tax and other laws is comparatively less. And that's why we have to consider the tax laws also into consideration while framing a deed also. So my humble request is we can also switch over into that profession also, even though it seems to be not so good, but drafting is our own. We are excellent drafting because chartered accountants speak less and do lot. And every time whenever I go audit, that's you are so smiling, but most of the chartered accountants are very serious. Yes, that is our professionals are always like that. Unfortunately, I'm not.
Yes, sir. As you said, is rightly said. Document writers mostly are with experience. They are getting on.
Copy paste.
Copy paste. There are so many mistakes nowadays. We are finding, and again going for
even though we reported to the sub-registrar office, nobody is following 260 and ST there. There is a lot of violation in 260
They don't
and
know
ST.
they don't know the implications. They don't know
And
the
if
implications of
any additional commissioner takes case of that, he will become a millionaire. Because such penalties are there with only additional commissioners and joint commissioners, but not with even commissioners. So if any person who looks into those aspects, he can tune the people also. But mostly in Raitwari system, it is there.
yes.
And nobody is bothered about all this act also. That's the problem. Nobody is bothered about income tax act. That's the problem. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. Namaste, sir.